So I'm Mark Miller, and as some of you noticed, I live in Ajijic, Mexico. That's outside of Guadalajara. I lived in Austin for 40 years, and we left 2.5 years ago. And I spent most of my career in high tech, although starting in 2011. And Carrie, keep your video turned off. Thank you. We moved to Ajijic 2.5 years ago. I spent most of my career in high tech. I've been through 2 successful tech startups, 22 years with IBM. I taught high school math. I did nonprofit work between the 2 startups. And my last corporate gig was with Life Size Communications, which is the first high definition video conferencing startup. So that's where my background in video comes from. And I built the initial training and certification program. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you from a really lousy environment. I'm going to convert this into something really good. So what I'm going to, and by the way, where I'm sitting right now, I have lighting overhead, which is why sometimes you see reflection off the glass. I have lighting to my left. I have a window. I'm running off the speakers on my Mac, and I'm running off the microphone off my Mac. And I'm gonna improve it. What I want you to understand is this is Hollywood. I want you to see what I want you to see, and I want you to hear what I want you to hear. So first, we're going to talk about video, lighting, camera position, what you want behind you. Do not use virtual backgrounds, and I'll explain why. How you want to frame yourself and the kind of clothing you want to wear. The microphone, I'm running off that microphone right now. I'm going to switch over to my podcasting microphone. Talk about room acoustics. This room sucks, and you'll see when I switch. I also want to talk about you will do things differently when you're being interviewed versus you in a meeting. And I want you to start thinking about what you want people to see when you are in a meeting or an interview. That will be somewhat different. And I'm going to lower my. Okay. Then we'll talk about dual monitors. Today, I've seen on multiple sessions, it's real obvious they have dual monitors. And what they're doing is they're either looking at the people on the second monitor or they're looking at their presentation and they're not looking at you. I've seen that multiple times today. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot. At the end, I'm going to turn my laptop around and I'll show you what the rest of the room looks like. And it looks like a wreck. So, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. So with that, as I said, the video, right now the lighting in here is bad. I have overhead lights. I have a light directly above me. The problem with overhead lights, which is typical in offices and homes, offices almost always have light from the ceiling. In the home, it may come from the side, but more importantly, lighting in the home is meant to light your surfaces. It's not meant to light you. And when you have lighting from above, notice, well, number one, I've got a window over here. You end up with very inconsistent lighting. That's not a natural light. So as when I switch the lighting, you'll see my skin color and texture changes. So, and the other thing is it's very common in a home to have windows. And the windows present a couple of different problems. Number one, natural lighting, unless you can have it directly in front of you, which in my condo back in Austin, I used to sit right in front of a window where I got lots of natural light on me, except early in the morning and the evening. So the problem with natural lighting is you can't control, morning, evening, summer, winter, stormy, cloudy, sunny. You can't control it. The other problem with windows is they're very, very hard surfaces. And hard surfaces reflect audio. So one of the things that I'll use the example in this room, this is typical Mexico. I've got concrete walls. I've got windows. I got tile floors. Now, I'm fortunate in this room it's a little bit better, but you'll see when I switch mics, it'll get a lot better. So watch as I switch my lighting, and I'm going to close my drapes. Notice how my skin color changed. And this is not optimal. I haven't played around with the positioning of my lamps. I have two LED, boy, that's bad. Let me play around with this a little bit. I have two LED lamps that I bought a precision camera 5 years ago. They got umbrellas of them. I'll show them to you later. I need to optimize this a little bit better. But notice how my skin color changed. This is my natural appearance. And I've got to do some work on the shadows behind me. So notice that everything uniform. And one of the challenges you always have is with glasses and trying to position your lighting so that you don't get reflection off your glasses. The second is my camera position. My laptop and my camera is directly at eye level. And what I want to do is I want to get to the point, and I'm going to position this a little bit higher, where notice I put my top of my head at the top of the screen. And where I'm positioned is directly below the camera. So if right now I'm looking at myself, or if I'm looking at somebody else, I am looking at the camera and I am trying to simulate eye-to-eye contact. I've noticed in several sessions during this morning, people were, they were looking at a screen to the side or they're doing something else. What I want to do is I want to simulate this eye-to-eye contact. And by the way, the further I am away, the distance between what I'm looking at and the camera, that angle gets smaller and smaller. What to think about is that eye contact. The next thing, and says my internet connection is unstable. So what I want you to do is I also want you to understand that I want you to use a nice background. Unless you've got a really fast computer and you've got a green screen, do not use a virtual background. If you use a virtual background, keep it very simple, because I don't want any distraction being singer's session last. He uses a simple green background and he actually puts things on the wall. He doesn't use a virtual background. If you noticed early in the pandemic, we had a lot of the newscasters were using different, and you could almost see the little holes that as they moved around. It really sucks. One of the other common one is people do a bookcase. That's very common. You see that with any number of the news broadcasts. What I want you to be careful on is what's on that bookcase. I had one case where a woman, she had her kids' video games. Or Tom yesterday talked about somebody who was doing a webinar and she had The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump on. She had bought it 30 years ago. She had no idea it was up there. That blew up her present in the chat box during her presentation. The next thing I want you to focus on is your clothing and your framing. Notice when you're in a meeting and most of the presenters, you see them like this. If you're in an interview, I want to see all of you. So one of your assignments after this is go turn on CNN, MSNBC, the local broadcast, the local news, whatever, and watch how the newscast framed up. Okay? I want you to, because that's one of the things I want people to be able to see is as much of you as possible. Our recruiter at Life Size used to frame herself where she cut herself off at mid-torso. She purposely did that so the people she was interviewing couldn't see her writing. And she was good at writing.
Hey, Mark, your internet connection is pretty unstable. We're getting to the point where it's freezing pretty strongly.
Okay, when did you guys lose me?
What was that?
When did you lose me?
We heard the art of the deal comment. And then
Okay, so let's move on to audio. So, and I may have screwed up. Yes, I'm using my internal speaker. I'm going to switch over to this guy. You notice a difference in the audio? One of the things I want you to think about is audio is actually more important than video. We will tolerate poor video. The Texas Longhorns, if they ever make a national championship game again, and the connection's not very good on your TV set, you'll still watch it. It says much less space in your sound now. Yes. Now I posted in Slack an article I wrote which has all the equipment I'm using. This is an ATR, an Audio Technica ATR 2100. It is about a $60 microphone. It's the almost all podcasters use initially. It has the one that they sell today has nothing but a USB connector. So it plugs right into your USB port on your computer. What I do is when I'm in a meeting, I have a little stand that I just put the microphone in. I don't really need the pop filter. But notice that if I'm listening to a football game, I'm listening to the Texas Longhorns championship game on the radio in the car, and there's static, you'll turn it off. You will not tolerate bad audio. Thing is, when you start it, I want you to think about the acoustics of the room. Now, if you are, in meetings, I want you to think about where your desk is, and what are the acoustics of the room. If you can be in a room with lots of carpeting, I have two big windows here. I have drapes pulled over both of them. That's both to block the lighting, but it's also to block the windows, because windows they cause a lot of acoustic reverberation. So the first thing I want you to focus on is the acoustics in the room. And when you turn it around, I have all tile floors in here, but a lot of them are covered. People don't put wall-to-wall carpeting in Mexico. So what you're going to do and for an interview, by the way, I want you to go find a space in your house which has a nice blank wall behind you, so the focus is on you. Notice that I am standing up. When I am standing up, my voice has more power. My diaphragm is released. I am also standing on a gel mat. I have a habit, if you ever meet me in person, I'm standing at a product camp, which I went to about 18 of them. If I'm standing, I tend to rock. By the way, due to a bicycle accident, my right leg is a quarter inch shorter than the left. So I have a habit of rocking, but when I'm on this gel mat, I plant myself and I don't move. What I'm trying to do is remove distractions. So the key piece here is, you may very well, for regular meetings, I want you to set up an environment. And then if you're going to interview, I want you to, again, pick a kind of a different kind of environment. And again, pick a place that's optimal that shows you off. And by the way, I should say, it used to be on video, if you had very, very heavy patterns, it would, the camera could get lost on these, or they could pixelate. I tend to tell people to wear very, very simple things. These happen to be vaporware tees. I have about 10 of them because down here where I live at 5,000 feet. By the way, the average temperature here year round is 72 degrees. And I am, as you can tell, I'm very fair skinned. I'm a former redhead. So I again, simple. The other thing I want you to think about is if you have a camera that is, that autofocuses, and which is not unusual with some of the newer Logitechs, is I want to make sure that you have whatever's behind you is not far. When I worked at Life Size, we had all autofocus cameras. And what I did was I would put a rice paper room divider behind me. Because if I suddenly stepped away, what happened is the camera would zoom back. Similarly, use the example, see if this does it. Notice what happens when I open my, I have your eye naturally goes there. Okay, the last thing I want to do before I show my room is the dual monitor situation. You really want to be careful when you're using dual monitors. I always claim put the people in front of you and your presentation to the side on the dual monitor, and then look at the people. Don't look at your presentation. If you're in a corporate environment and you can standardize, it's very useful if you can get everyone to put their presentation to the side so that when you are presenting, you can tell when they are looking at the presentation and when they're looking at you. Again, this is trying to simulate what you would see in the real world. So with that, I'm going to give you a little tour of my room. There's the lamps. Notice the yoga ball. Yes, it's a wreck. I'll just turn this around like that. There's my drapes. The idea here is this room's a wreck, but you don't know that. We're in Hollywood. We're presenting, we want you to see what I want you to see, what I want you to see. So with that, let's go to questions. You either can, and Danica, we tell everybody this is a great place. It's kind of like Austin. Years ago when I worked for my first tech startup, I had a bunch of guys from Silicon Valley come in. They said, Mark, your housing's so cheap. And my response was, this is 2001. I said, go home. Just go home. So Danica, how do you want to do questions?
So it's actually been working for people to unmute their mics, or you can post
Sure,
them here
I'm cool.
and go ahead. I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but so if everybody just wants to unmute their mic or take a second to drop them in, then you'll be good to go.
Yep, there's actually one question, I'm sorry, in the Slack channel. Oh, it's in the wrong Slack channel about recommendations for equipment.
Yes,
Okay.
sorry, that was my fault.
Okay.
Wrong color.
I'll put it in the main chat in the, here is an article I wrote and I recently updated it. I put it in the chat box that talks about the two microphones I recommend. This is an ATR 2100. There's also a Samson 2QE, I think is the proper. They're both the $50, $60 microphones. They're definitely worth the investment. I'm not using headphones right now. If I was in a meeting, I would probably use, I would invest in some headphones. I'm using the reason why I like the headphones is my wife gets real annoyed if I put the audio on the speakers. You know, happy life, happy wife, happy life. And as I said, these lamps, these are LED lamps. I put shades on them, but you can go down to Home Depot and just get full spectrum LED lights. They're also known as grow lights. And again, you want to position them. I moved them around this morning and I got even more shining on my glasses than I had planned. But you play around with them until you can eliminate any kind of glare. And obviously they don't shine in your face. But the key piece is to get the proper, you looking the way you want to look. What other questions do people have?
And Mark, follow up to that. Do you use any, like, let's say you're giving a PowerPoint presentation or something like that. Do you use any software to be on the screen at the same time? Like have a picture in picture?
My audio's falling out. Sorry.
Do you, no, I'll try asking again. Do you use
Give it a second.
I can
probably
hear
gonna-
you. Can you hear me?
Okay, try again.
Okay. Do you use any software to, when you're, let's say, when you're going through a presentation or anything like that, to do picture in picture or in any way augment what is captured by the camera?
I have not. I'm a big believer in doing presentations, kiss baby. I used to do a lot of online training. And one of my key pieces was I put no words on my slides. I put pictures up and just try and keep it simple.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah. Fancy is not better. Anything else?
So Mark, you talked a little bit about glasses and glare. So what would be your approach to kind of removing the glare? Is you move them higher, or what?
It's the biggest thing is to position the lighting to eliminate the glare. I don't know why I've got it here. In my old place I didn't have any, and I have to, and I think as I've got to get the lighting up higher and have it less directional down, but I didn't play around with it enough. It's all about the lighting position and playing around the room.
Okay.
If you're talking, Jay, I can't hear you.
No, I said, okay.
Okay. What else do people have? Sure.
So would you prefer having a good headphone, like a Bose headphone, which is really good for taking calls as well, or having a separate audio microphone sort of device which you currently use?
I would invest in a decent microphone. I wouldn't use the headset. I find the headsets they're mediocre microphones.
Okay.
By the way, I use this for my podcast, which by the way is Repurpose Your Career. And it's, I have a pop filter for most of what you guys are going to do. You don't need a pop filter. Because you're gonna keep the microphone far enough away from you. But a good example, when you guys get all the videos up, go look at Tom's Singer session. Now Tom's got a really nice setup in his daughter's former bedroom, with a good microphone. He's got good lighting. It looks really good. And he didn't spend a lot of money on it.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep. One of the things I've had with people, their resistance to buying a microphone, they say, well, I've heard my son has a good microphone on his PlayStation. And what you don't want to be doing is grabbing a microphone, unplugging it, plugging back in when you need it. Personally, my USB connection on this microphone is slowly but surely been getting worse. And I'll probably be buying a new microphone this next year.
Okay. So one thing I've noticed sometimes when I use different microphone and speaker is sometimes there's interference and people hear echoes. Is that a problem?
Well, usually that's on their end. But I'll use the example, Deepak. Listening to you, I'm hearing all kinds of reverberation in the room. So one of the things it's not just the microphone, it's the entire room. One of the things, this is what we refer to as a directional mic. It only picks up audio from the front of the mic. So the one advantage of this is, if my wife was on the other side of this, on the bed, you probably couldn't hear her. Or at the old place, I had construction going on next door, and there was constant hammering. And, and by the way, Carrie, the Blue Snowball, the Yeti, a lot of podcasters hate that microphone, although it's very popular. The reason why is you have to get it set up exactly right to be directional. It's by default, it's omnidirectional, which means it picks up audio from everything. Anything else? Was this useful?
Heck yes.
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. I want you to put your focus on, the audio more than the video. Put the focus first on the audio, then on the video. And be more careful when you're dealing in audio and video is the room setup. And particularly for most of you folks who are, you're running Zoom meetings, think about what's behind you and what brands you. Because what's behind you very much brands you. And the one reason I don't like virtual backgrounds is a lot of people like putting up pretty pictures and all kinds of other stuff. That can be very distracting. Okie dokie. So I think we're gonna, please go vote, and any feedback is very useful. I made it through only the connection dying once. I was very concerned. Ever since the kids went back to school here and it's all virtual, my download speeds have gone to crap. So with that, thank you very much.
All right, folks, I posted a link in both the green Slack channel and here in this Slack chat or in this Zoom chat for providing feedback and voting for best session with Mark. And so we have about a 10-minute adjustment period to head on back to the main channel, and I'll leave this open so that you guys can access these links or, you know, just have a moment to do a bio break or breathe while you head over to that main channel again for our networking happy hour and opening ceremony or closing ceremony.
I'll hang out here for a little while. Carrie, you're muted.
When are you coming back to Austin? I know you just left. When are you coming back again?
We were coming back every 6 months. We were slated to come back in April because the registration needed to be renewed, but COVID got in the way. And it appears that I timed it perfectly because the COVID numbers are going back up in Austin. I hit it exactly right. So yeah, listen to my podcast episode that I published tomorrow morning. It was interesting, the fact that on a Friday night, first night we're there, we go down to 2nd Street, go down to Numero 28, our favorite Italian restaurant. And, you know, owners knew we were coming, and I sit down outside and I felt like a dinosaur. Everybody was young. As we're walking around 2nd Street on that Friday evening, everybody was young. What's that, Jay?
Truth hurts.
Well, and then you know, everybody I talked to, you know, who are our age demographic, all were staying at home. And down here, we've got a group of friends, 3 or 4 folks we just kind of hang out with. All our restaurants here are outdoors. The COVID-19 protocol here is very strict, a whole lot more strict than it is in Texas. So it was kind of weird going back and walking into Whole Foods and saying, oh, just wear a mask. If I walk into Costco here, they make me stand on a sanitary mat. They hand me hand sanitizer. They take my temperature, and I have to wear a mask. So it was real bizarre being back. So,
Mark, do you use a background or do you
Nope.
use that background? You just use that.
I use this. I'm purposely pick. And I said, watch. Well, you were in Tom's session yesterday.
He was using a virtual background though. He was using.
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't.
Slides. On the slides he was.
On his slides he was, but during his normal session, he was using his regular. And he like he said, when he's speaking to certain audiences, he'll swap out the logos on his wall.
Which I love. I'm gonna do that.
Right? It's brilliant way of doing it.
Yeah.
The one thing that, like, for example, I would recommend to you is you might consider getting a rice paper room divider and just put it behind you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can decide what you want to put on that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to control the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Now your lighting is pretty good. Do you have anything special there?
I have a round light here in front of me.
Yep.
I have a big window in front of me, and I always keep the shades shut when I'm on because I can't control it. And I have a light above me. If I turn that light off, it looks terrible.
Yep. Yeah. Well, the light behind you is the equivalent of what they call a key light. It's providing perspective behind you. And that's because you've got enough space behind you. if you decided to put some kind of room divider, by the way, that also says if you put a room divider, it means that back wall could be a wreck.
Mm-hmm.
You don't care,
Yeah, you don't care. Yeah, yeah.
right?
Well, I was thinking about getting a green screen.
Well, one of the folks in my online community has bought, you can buy these round green screens that fit onto your chair.
That's a
And
good idea. Yeah.
now, as long as you, again, as long as the virtual background you use is simple enough, and yours is pretty simple, you just have your logo and the green color.
You're talking about my background with the alligators, or
Yes,
yeah,
yeah. In general, it's pretty simple.
Mhm,
And it's branded.
mhm.
A lot of what people use, you know, they use all kinds of pictures they've taken. Just be very conscious of what you want behind you. It's kind of like several years ago, I did a session for Launchpad where the guy was a EDI guy, electronic data interchange. And his LinkedIn photo had him standing behind and a bookcase was behind him with all the top EDI books. Well, if that's your niche, you look at that and you go, oh, that guy knows what he's doing,
Mhm.
right? Is be very selective with what's behind you. And by the way, those ring lights work very well. They particularly work well when you're in a fixed location. Right. What I didn't mention was I have my computer sitting here on top of 2 milk crates, sitting on top of my desk. That's how I get the right elevation.
Yeah, I need to work on that too, because I have to put my computer screen down this way in order for me to have my face in it.
Yep.
I should probably sit higher or either put the computer lower so I don't have to do that.
Yes, it's figuring out the proper height that you can get the computer at, or go buy another. Are you using the camera inside the computer?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Another choice is actually what some people have done is they use dual monitors and they go buy a very specific camera. And one of the things you can do, what really helps is to mount the camera at the bottom of the screen and have it slightly looking up at you. Because one of the things that does is it reduces some of the shadows underneath your chin. So what we used to recommend at Life Size was you mount the camera so it obstructs the very base of the screen.
Mhm.
And because when you're looking at a screen, particularly on video, the one thing that you never look at is right down at the bottom. So putting a camera sitting it there so it slightly obstructs, that's fine.